So, guys, do you remember just a few months ago when almost everybody was questioning the Washington Commanders? Some people weren't convinced this offense had done enough to improve, while others felt this team still wasn't ready to compete with the NFL's best. Well, now NFL analyst Dan Orlovsky has made a bold prediction that got a lot of people talking. And once you hear what he had to say, you'll understand why Commanders fans are paying so much attention. So, let me break down exactly what was said, why it's creating so much buzz, and whether Washington really is being set up for something special in 2026. What's up, Commanders Nation? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Commanders. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Okay, let me start with the actual quote that started all the noise. Speaking on NFL Live, Dan Orlovsky said he is bullish on this offense heading into 2026. He pointed straight at the weapons this roster now has, and he specifically called out Chig Okonkwo, saying that he led Tennessee in receptions last season. That is not a small stat to bring up. That means the tight end this team just added already proved he can be a featured target, not just a body on the roster. Orlovsky also said he likes putting the quarterback under center and running a play-action system for a guy like Jayden Daniels. Think about that for a second, because it tells you exactly where this offense is heading. Under center. Play action. That is a completely different identity than what fans watch for the last 2 seasons. Beyond the scheme talk, Orlovsky pointed to the personnel additions that most people slept on this offseason. He brought up third-round pick Antonio Williams, coming out of Clemson, and he brought up the free agent signing of running back Rachaad White. And then he circled back to the 2 names everybody already knows, Jayden Daniels and Terry McLaurin, both returning to the field fully healthy this year. That last part matters more than people want to admit. Last season, injuries changed everything for this offense, and now Orlovsky is saying the health alone could be the difference between a team that struggles and a team that breaks out. And it was not just Orlovsky saying this either. Mina Kimes jumped in and called this one of the most fascinating offenses in football heading into the season. She pointed out that David Blough's resume is so varied because the Kliff Kingsbury offense and the Ben Johnson offense sit on 2 completely different ends of the spectrum. She said that variety should actually help the quarterback, and she likes how some of the skill players map onto this new system. So now you have 2 respected analysts coming from 2 different angles, both landing on the same conclusion. This offense has real upside in 2026. Okay, now let's talk about why the coaching background actually matters here, because this is where things get interesting. David Blough did not come up through one system. He learned under Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell, which is a completely different style of football than what Kliff Kingsbury ran here the last 2 years. Kingsbury liked to spread the field and let his quarterback operate almost entirely out of shotgun. Johnson's approach leans on the run game, on play action, and on making every single play look identical until the ball is actually snapped. That is the blend Blough is bringing to Washington, and if he pulls it off, opposing defenses are going to have a much harder time reading keys before the snap. This is exactly the kind of scheme change that should benefit Terry McLaurin the most. Think about how he has been used the last few years. Almost every single snap, he lined up as the outside receiver, which means defenses always knew exactly where he was going to be. Once a defense knows where your number 1 target lines up, they can shade coverage his way and take him out of the game plan. But in a Ben Johnson influence system, receivers get moved around constantly, through motion, through different formations, through different alignments. If Terry McLaurin starts getting that kind of usage, defenses lose the ability to simply lock onto him before the play even starts. And the thing about McLaurin that stands out most is how consistent he is no matter how many targets he gets in a game. Give him 3 targets or give him 10, he plays the same way every time. Then there is another way to look at why McLaurin fits this new plan so well, and it comes down to how he was built as a receiver in the first place. He was never a guy who won purely on speed or purely on size. He simply does everything well, and receivers who play that way tend to age better than the ones who rely on a single physical trait. When a receiver depends mostly on pure speed, the moment that speed starts to fade even a little, his production drops right along with it. McLaurin was never built like that, which is exactly why a system that finally uses him in more creative ways, through motion and through different alignments instead of parking him on the outside every single snap, should get more out of him instead of less. He has never truly been force-fed the ball the way most number 1 receivers around the league are, and if this new coaching staff makes the decision to feed him on purpose, the numbers could look completely different than anything we have seen from him so far in his career. Now, if I talk about why putting Jayden Daniels under center more often actually helps the run game, and it comes down to how a defense reads where the running back lines up. When a running back sits to one side of the quarterback in the shotgun, a defense already knows which direction that run is more likely to go, because the back can really only work in one direction from that alignment. But when the running back lines up directly behind the quarterback under center, he can go either direction, and now the defense has to respect both sides equally. That one small detail is a big reason a back like Rachaad White could see a real jump in production this season, because the scheme stops tipping off exactly where the ball is going before the snap even happens. The receiving room gets even more interesting here. Antonio Williams was a highly dynamic, reliable slot receiver at Clemson, and Washington snagged him on day 2 of the draft in the 3rd round. Adding a playmaker like him alongside a proven veteran like Rachaad White in the screen game gives David Blough a ton of options to spread the ball around. And the tight end room fits into this puzzle too. Chig Okonkwo is not known as the most physical blocking tight end, but that is fine because Washington already has John Bates who can handle the inline blocking responsibilities. That frees up Okonkwo to focus purely on what he does best, getting yards after the catch as a pass-catching threat. Splitting roles like that between two tight ends usually means both guys end up more effective, since neither one is asked to do something outside his skill set. What makes all of this even more believable is the relationship that already exists between Jayden Daniels and David Blough. Long before Blough was ever promoted to offensive coordinator, the two of them were already working together, throwing the football around before practice, and building chemistry that most quarterback and coordinator pairs need years to develop. That kind of comfort level matters because a quarterback who already trusts his play caller tends to play faster and more decisively once the season starts. There is also a timing element to all of this that people are overlooking. Players report to Ashburn, Virginia in roughly 2 weeks, and this will be the very first time the entire offense is together learning this new system from scratch. Unlike last year when Terry McLaurin held out and missed valuable time, there are no key players holding out this offseason. That means this group gets to install the new offense together as a full unit right from day one. With how front-loaded the schedule is early in the season, that kind of continuity could end up being one of the most underrated factors in whether this offense clicks fast or takes a few weeks to figure itself out. Now, all of this offensive optimism is exciting, but a real breakout season does not happen on one side of the ball alone. So, let's shift over to the defense because there is just as much reason for excitement over there under head coach Dan Quinn and his new defensive coordinator Daronte Jones. His approach has been described as organized chaos, and once you watch how he wants to deploy this roster, you understand why. The signing of cornerback Rasul Douglas fits that identity perfectly. This is a player who posted a career-high 5 interceptions back in 2021, and he has a couple of pick sixes on his resume as well. Adding a ball hawk like that behind an aggressive scheme means more takeaways, and takeaways change games. Then there is Sonny Styles, and if you watch this offseason program closely, you already know what kind of buzz he created. His combine numbers alone were absurd for a player his size, but it is the way he moves in space that has people talking. He played safety, he transitioned to linebacker, and along the way, he racked up sacks, directed the defense as the green dot player, and barely missed a tackle his entire senior year. Under a coordinator like Jones, who wants versatile defenders who can do multiple jobs, Styles looks like exactly the kind of piece that raises the ceiling of this whole unit. There is a sleeper pick worth mentioning too, defensive end Joshua Josephs. He was projected as a 3rd or 4th round talent out of Tennessee, and Washington landed him in the 5th round, which a lot of people around the league viewed as a steal. He consistently got after opposing quarterbacks in college and forced a good number of fumbles along the way. Add in the return of Dorance Armstrong from injury along with safety addition Nick Cross, and this defense suddenly has more depth than it has had in years. Linebacker Frankie Luvu deserves a mention here as well because people forgot just how good he actually is after a down year. With more talent surrounding him and a scheme built to let defenders play fast instead of thinking too much, there is a real chance he bounces back to the level everybody saw from him before. Do not sleep on the secondary either. Cornerback Trey Amos and safety Sainristil both have a real chance to take a jump this season in a scheme that asks defensive backs to be aggressive instead of just reacting. Pair young talent like that with a proven veteran ball hawk like Rasul Douglas, and you start to understand why this defense could be just as much a part of the breakout story as the offense. Now, when you put it all together, here is where we land. A healthy Jayden Daniels, a healthy Terry McLaurin, and a scheme finally built to move its best players around instead of leaving them stationary. An aggressive new coordinator, a proven ball hawk at cornerback, and a rising star linebacker with rare athletic ability. That is not optimism for the sake of optimism. That is a legitimate case for a breakout season, and it is exactly why an analyst like Dan Orlovsky is willing to put his name behind this offense before a single snap has even been played in 2026. So, is this team going to be perfect? Honestly, every new system takes a few weeks to click, but the pieces here line up better than they have in years. Healthy stars, a scheme built to use its best players the right way, real additions on both sides of the ball, and a full offseason together without a single key holdout. That is a legitimate case for a breakout season, and it is exactly why an analyst like Dan Orlovsky is willing to put his name behind this offense before a single snap has even been played in 2026. Washington enters this season with more real reason for hope than it has had in years. Drop your prediction in the comments and let me know if you are buying into the breakout talk.